This is the bouquet that we will be making today. It is white roses with eucalyptus leaves. Before we get started, we need to prep the flowers. Whenever farmers get the flowers ready for shipping, they will leave the guard petals on to help protect the flowers during transit. So if you see any damaged petals, then go ahead and just pull those off. And for this design, we will not be using any of the leaves, so I will go ahead and pull those off as well. And lastly, if there are any thorns, you want to go ahead and clip those off. I am using pruning shears, but you can also use floral scissors. And I like pruning shears because they can cut through branches as well as the flower stems easily. If you're interested in getting a pair of these shears, you can look in the description below. Let's talk about some of the other supplies that we will need as we put the bouquet together. We have some satin ribbon here. We also have some corsage pins, and we have some floral tape to help secure the stems together and keep the design intact as we move along. Start off, you want to find the largest rose to be the center of your bouquet. So I am going to select this one here, and then from there you will be putting the other roses to surround this one. And when you do this, what I try to do is to have the rose about a 1/4 inch below the one that's in the center. So this one is considered the center, and then these other ones that I'm going to be putting around are going to be about a 1/4 inch below the center rose that I've designated. I'm noticing some thorns here, so I'm just going to use the side of my pruner to kind of just smooth them out a little bit so that they're easier to handle. Now I am just adjusting the flowers to be about a 1/4 inch below the middle flower. So if you can see that. And once I like the look, I will go ahead and secure these before I continue to add on more roses. And that's where the floral tape comes in. So the floral tape, you want to hold it just with your thumb or your finger, and then you want to stretch it out a little bit because that will release the adhesive that is within the tape. And just go around a couple of times, and then if you just pull on it, you can rip it or cut it off. Okay, and now we are going to continue adding more flowers around the perimeter. And I put them into the spaces between the existing flowers. So here we go. And again, I am going for the a 1/4 inch below the prior row. So we are going to continue filling in. Now that we put it between each of the stems, but you'll notice that it's still a little bit uneven because we're trying to go for a rounded shape. So go ahead and just look at where the gaps are and fill those in. And you'll start to notice that it's rounding out over here, but over here looks like it still needs something. Okay, it's looking like it has a pretty nice round shape now. So we are going to use the tape again to secure everything into place. So using your thumb to hold the floral tape and then just pulling this around. Since this is getting a little bit larger, I am going to go around about 3 times. Okay, and then I think we are ready to add the greenery. And to make this a little bit easier to manage, I am going to go ahead and cut it down to size. So I'm trying to imagine where the bride will be holding the flowers. And so I'm thinking maybe like this with 2 hands. And I will leave a couple of inches below the bottom of the bottom hand. So it would be around here. All right, so now let's add some greenery. We are going to be using eucalyptus for this arrangement. The nice thing about eucalyptus is that they have the leaves going all the way down the stem, so it really will help to fill in the space all the way down to where we will have our ribbon. And as you're placing the eucalyptus, I try to have it covering a little bit below the side of the flowers. So you don't want to cover up the flowers, you just want to have it a little bit below, maybe half an inch below the flower to help just add some interest to the flowers, but not to cover them up. And so where the tape is, I know that I don't need any of the leaves below here, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull those off. And we will just continue to add leaves around. Now this one, I picked this one up, but I'm not really liking the way it's shaped. See how it's really fanned out? That's not going to work for this, so I'm just going to go ahead and select another stem. Here's a nice one, and I am going to actually take these apart because that would work out better. And when you cut these off, you can still use them maybe in a centerpiece arrangement, so don't toss those. Just hold it. Just go ahead and keep those and use them for later. For the most part, I like the way that this is spread out because it'll help to cover up a large portion of the side of this bouquet. But I don't like that long stem that is sticking out, so I am actually going to go ahead and place this where I want it, and then I'm going to be clipping that longer one just to make it work. When you clip it, you want to clip it in a place that's not as visible, so I am choosing to clip it right here where there are other leaves surrounding it. There you go. You don't even notice that it was just cut. And now that it's looking more full, I am just taking a look to see where there are gaps, and it looks like there's a gap right here. And so this one is a little bit, it's not ideal, but it's still workable. See how there's some leaves that are pretty much at the same level, such as this one and this one, the tips of them. So I'm going to pretend that that's the top of the leaves that I want to use. And then again, I will clip the other ones that I don't particularly like. See how these leaves are kind of extending out here? Those are really nice. So a good place to cut would be right down there. And then it won't be as noticeable when you clip that one away because these still look like they're the tip tops of the leaves. Now for this one, because I might have liked to cut it here, but it is a little too high and close to the flower, so I'm actually going to select down here to cut. And then sometimes you'll notice some of the leaves are dried, you know, just go ahead and cut those off. Like this one right here, that's not pretty at all. So I am going to cut the dried parts off. All right, and then I'm just going to take another look to see where else we have gaps. And it seems like right here. So I'll go ahead and fill that in, and then I think we should be good. As you're adding the greenery, try to make sure that the stems are long enough so that when you put the bouquet into a vase, that the stems can still reach the water. You don't want the stems to be behind the ribbon because we're not planning to get the ribbon wet when we put it into the vase to keep it hydrated. Okay, so that one is looking a little bit long, but we can do our little trick like before and just snip off any parts that are too much for our design. Okay, I am going to go ahead and tape these together. Since this is a really nice look at this point, if you take an above view, it looks very even as far as the greenery goes. And then if you look at the side view, it also seems to be well covered. Take the floral tape and hold the end of it with your thumb. And then switching hands, putting your index finger on that tape, and then using the other hand to go around with the tape. Now, before you do another round, check to see that none of the stems had moved, such as this one. This is not where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and readjust it before I really secure the tape, because it'll be much more difficult to readjust after the tape is secured. And so now we want to take one final look just to make sure that things look good before we add the ribbon. So if you're looking at the top view, I'm noticing that over here looks a little bit empty as far as greenery goes. So I am going to add another stem there. As you saw, that stem was a little bit big as far as all the other branches that were coming off of it. So I did snip off plenty of those. And these are much too long for what I would like, because I want to keep them consistent with the other stems. So I will go ahead and snip those back a little bit. And sometimes it takes constant checking just to make sure that things are still looking really good. Okay, so I think that we have the leaves where we want them. So this will be the final taping to secure it all. And then I also like to kind of keep this nice and tight where I will have the ribbon. So I'm going to go ahead and just have the tape go down a little bit further to have a nice and neat base where the ribbon will be going. So see how I made it nice and tight around this part here where the ribbon is going to be going? That really help out later. Before we can put the ribbon on, we should decide which is the front side of the bouquet. I think that this should be the front side. It looks the prettiest to me. So therefore, this being the back side, that's where I would start the ribbon end. I'm going to go around about 3 times. This is the second time. And this is the third time. And now I'm just trying to make sure I identify the front, which was the time determined to be over here. So I will end the ribbon here and put my pins right along there. So knowing that I want the pins to line up right here, I will cut this beyond about 1/2 inch so that I can fold it under and make it a nice end. And one other trick that I like to do is I like to snip off the corners, because sometimes when you're folding it over, it kind of peeks out from underneath the ribbon. So snipping a corner will help to keep those looking neat. Now I stick the pins upward because I find that they're disguised much better than going downward. And I'm seeing how I don't really like that it's not centered, because I plan to use 3 pins. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out and just put it back in. All right, so there we go.